can upload to YouTube, and later on you can review back this lecture. All right, so yes, so today we are going to learn about the theory of supply and demand. And please, if you have any questions, if you don't understand, or if I am having an issue with my voice or with my connection, you can stop me. Yeah, and please, if you have any question, don't hesitate to raise hand or just to stop me and ask the question. Right. So when we speak about economics, usually there are two words that the economists use often. So this word are supply and demand. And so the supply and demand are the two forces which make up the market. It is how the economic works. So in microeconomic, we will learn about what is the supply and what is the demand and how they meet each other at market equilibrium. So first of all, what is a market? A market is, a place where buyer and seller, they meet together to exchange products and services. So this is the place where we buy product and services. Before, we have a traditional market, but nowadays we have an online market. We call this a marketplace or an e-commerce or online marketplace, things like that. So it is not anymore a place. It can be a platform, it can be a website, it can be an application. So a market is a media where group of buyers and sellers, they exchange goods and services. They meet each other to trade, or to sell some products. So the terms supply and demand refer to the behavior of the people in the market. So this is the interaction between one another in a market. So when I say supply, I am usually talking about seller, okay? And when I say demand, I'm usually speak about buyer, okay? So the term supply and demand, it reflects the behavior of sellers, and it also reflects the behavior of buyers. So when I say supply, means that this is the behavior of the seller, and when I say demand, it means that I am talking about the behavior of the buyer. And the interaction of supply and demand will make the equilibrium price, and this is what the economics will looks like, and we are going to analyze the things that impact the movement of the price. So buyers will determine the demand. So buyer is those people who wants to get products and services. While supply, they are determined by the seller. Okay. So what is a competitive market? So in market, we usually say that we have a competition. So what is actually a competition? Competitions mean that, where the sellers, they are trying to get as many buyer as they could. So they will try their best to attract buyer to buy their products. And this is a competition. So in economics, when we say a competitive markets, it means that it is a market which has so many buyers and so many sellers, so that each has a negligible impact on the market price. Because we have so many buyers and so many sellers, they could not influence the market price. So one of the buyer and one of the seller will not influence the market price. So when we have a competitive markets, for example, you go to the traditional market, okay? When you go to the traditional market, what happen usually? Usually when we go to the traditional market, we have so many buyers and we have so many sellers. Like for example, you want to buy Apple, okay? You want to buy Apple and you have 10 sellers of Apple in the traditional market. Who is using Ahmad Shahroni here? Oh my goodness. Okay. So you say that let's say that we want to buy Apple, all right? And we have 10 sellers in the traditional markets. So this is seller number 1, this is seller number 2, this is seller number 3, okay? And seller number 10. Okay? So we have 10 sellers of Apple. So what happened? Let's say that the seller number 3, so this seller, he or she is selling above the market price. What do you think will happen? Nobody will buy from seller number 3. They will go to different sellers. Why? Because seller number 3 is selling very expensive. He or she is selling higher than the market price, than the normal price that exists in the market. So when this happens, when seller number 3 is selling above the market, people will not buy from seller number 3 because we have so many sellers. Seller number 1, seller number 2, 4, 5, until 10. So this seller has a negligible impact on the market price because one seller will not impact the market price. So if you sell below or above the market price will stay the same because you are only one seller, right? So in the market, when we say a competitive markets, mean that we have many sellers, we have many buyers, and each of them are competing to get the best price as they wish. Okay, so competitive markets mean that we have many sellers and we have many buyers. So when we speak about competitions, yeah, we will say that in market we have so many types of competition. Okay, first we have a perfect competition. Perfect competitions mean that the product are the same. Let's say Apple. Okay, we have many buyers, we have many sellers, so that each has no influence over the price of the market. And the buyers and the sellers are price takers. They could not, each of them, a single of them, every one of them cannot influence the price of the market. This is where we have a perfect competition. And then we have a monopoly. What is monopoly? Monopoly is a kind of competition when there is only one seller and there are many buyers. And what happened, because you are the only seller available in the market, then you control the price. So here you are the price setter. So you set the price, you control the price, you make the price maker. We control the price, we make the price because nobody sell the product. So I'm the only seller in the market. We have many examples. In Indonesia, we have PLN. PLN is a company. Well, actually, it is a government-owned company which distribute electricity. We have also KAI. KAI is also a government-owned enterprise which provide the service of train train transport, yeah, train. So these are the monopoly because we have only one seller. We have only one provider in the market. Yeah. So again, when we speak about competition, we have so many types of competition. We have perfect competition, many buyer. Okay. We have monopoly. Monopoly is one. Mono means one. We have duopoly. Duo means two sellers. We have oligopoly. Oligopoly means two and more. Yeah, oligopoly, two and more. We have also monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition. Later on, we will learn about monopolistic competition. Yeah, so we have many competition, but for now, please remember that we have a perfect competitions means that the product are the same. Apple, for example, many buyers, many sellers, and both of the buyer and seller are price takers. Okay. Okay, please, if you have any questions, uh, you may raise hand or open your mic to us before I continue further. See, yeah. So we have oligopoly. Oligopoly means few sellers. So it can be 2 until 9. Yeah. Not always aggressive competition. Yeah. And we have also a monopolistic competition. Monopolistic means that we have many sellers that are selling a slightly differentiated product, almost the same, but they are not the same. So similar, slightly different. And each seller may set price for its own product. So when you see a good example is a phone industry. You know, in the phone industry, we have big players like Samsung, Apple, and then maybe the third biggest one is Huawei and 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 the other brands. But we see that the biggest one is Samsung and Apple. So in the phone industry, smartphone actually, so they set their own price. Yeah. So they are slightly different product. And although that we have many sellers, but each of the seller can set the price. So this is what we call the monopolistic competition. Okay. In oligopoly, yeah, we have 2 until 9, but there's no aggressive competition. But when we speak about monopolistic competition, they are very aggressive. Yeah, each of them they try to set the price that they see it is the best for them, and they are selling almost the same but slightly different product. Okay. All right. Now we speak about demand. Yeah, demand is the thing that the buyer uh, the buyer's behavior. Yeah. So when we speak about demand, we're talking about the behavior of the buyer. And there are first the quantity demanded. Yeah, the quantity demand, the Q. Yeah. What is the Q? Q is the amount of good that the buyers are willing and able to purchase. Look, there are two a very important keyword here: willing and able to purchase. This is what we call quantity demand. So when we want something, we demand something, we should be able and we should be willing to purchase. We cannot call demand if we only have the willing, but we don't have the capability to purchase. For example, every one of us, I believe that for a man, for example, yeah, the male students, I think that every one of us want to have a Ferrari, right? Yeah. This is a willingness. This is the desire, the willingness. But I think that no one of us is able to purchase a Ferrari. So we cannot call this is a demand for Ferrari car because even though that we have a willingness, we are not able to purchase. Yeah. So when we speak about the quantity demand, the amount of good that the buyers, number one, are willing, and number two, are able to purchase. So these two keywords are very important, yeah, when we talk about the quantity demanded, right? Okay, so we have a very beautiful theory or law when we discuss about demand. So we call this the law of demand. What does it say? It states that everything being equals or other things equal, you remember the word ceteris paribus, you know? Last week I speak about the meaning of ceteris paribus. Yeah. So what does it mean, ceteris paribus? Ceteris paribus means other things being constant or other things being equal. The quantity demanded of a good falls, decreases when the price of other goods rises. Okay, so the model of the demand will look like this. Yeah. So here, this is the model of demand. So here we have the price. Here we have the quantity. Okay. So the law state that ceteris paribus, everything's being equal, the quantity demanded of a good fall when the price of the other good rises. So it should looks like a decreasing curve. Yeah, it should looks like a decreasing curve. Yeah, so this is a demand curve, DC, demand curve. Look at where the price is high. This is the price. When the price is high, the quantity of the goods that we want to buy will be very low. But what will happen if the price is low? This is price 2. What will happen if we have price 2? The quantity we demand will be a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So a decrease in price will lead to an increase in quantity demanded. Okay, because the curve, the demand curve is a downward sloping. Yeah. So meaning that if we have a a decrease in price, then the quantity demanded will increase. Yeah. So let's try to look the model in a implementative way. So imagine that we have a demand schedule. So this demand schedule is actually is a table. So this is the demand schedule. This is a table which shows you the relationship between the price of the good and the quantity that demanded. All right. So this demand schedule is a table which shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded. So let's try to look for an illustration. So this is a person's named Kaylins. This is the demand schedule of her willingness and ability to demand an ice cream. All right. So if ice cream is free, if the price of ice cream is $0, meant free, she will demand 12 of ice cream. And then maybe she will eat 1, 2, 3 ice cream, and then she will give to others. Okay, the other ice cream will be given to somebody. All right. When we increase the price, look what happened from 0 to 0.5 US dollar. The quantity demanded will decrease, will reduce. Look what happened if the price of the ice cream is $1. She only willing and able to buy 8 ice cream. Okay. If the price increased to $2, she only willing and able to buy 4. And if the price of ice cream is 3, yeah, if the price of ice cream is 3, she is not willing and she is not able to buy ice cream. So it shows you the relationship between the price and the quantity. Okay, so if we draw the curve, yeah, so if we, next we have the demand curve. So this demand curve is a model. It is a graph which shows you the relationship between the price and the goods and services of the quantity demanded. So if we draw the table on on a graph, it will looks like this. You see that we have a curve, and the slope of the curve is negative. It is a downward sloping, and the higher the price, you see, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. While the lower the price, for example, when the price of ice cream is $1, we see that the quantity demanded is 8 ice cream. All right, so this is only for one person, and her name is Kaylins. This is the demand schedule and the demand curve for Kaylin. Okay. Now let's try to differentiate between the individual demand and the market demand. So when I say individual demand, it is only 1%. And if you combine all the demand of the individuals, we gonna come up with the market demand. So what does it mean, the market demand? It is a compilation of the whole individuals in the markets. Yeah. So the market demand refers to the sum, to the compilation of all individuals' demands for a particular good or services. Yeah. So you should now be able to differentiate when I say individual demand and the market demand. So when I say the market demand, it is the whole individuals in the market. Yeah, you should be careful about this two words. When I say individuals, mean this is one person only. But if we combine all the person in the market, is going to make a market demand. Okay? And graphically, the individual demand curves are summed horizontally to obtain the market demand curve. Yeah? So for example, okay? Okay, so for example, yeah, this is an illustration of how we come up with the market demand. So for example, in our left side, we have the Kaylin's demand. Yeah, we have only one person named Kaylee. Yeah, and the Kaylee, this is the graph that shows the willingness and the ability of Kylie to buy an ice cream. Okay, so when the price is $2, she is willing and able to buy 4 quantity of ice cream. And then in the middle, yeah, we have Ali's demand. So we have a second person named Ali. And if we look at the price here, when the price of ice cream is $2, the quantity demanded of Ali will be 3. Yeah. So Ali has a lower ability and a lower willingness than Kaylin's. See? And then when we sum up, yeah, when we sum up, okay, when we sum up, yeah, look at here. So we sum up horizontally. Yeah, when we sum up, look at this is the market demand, which consists of Kaylin's demand and Ali's demand. And you can see that when the price is $2, the quantity demanded become 7. From where this 7 come from? 4 from Kaylin's and Ali 3. Okay. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So the market demand is a sum up of everyone's in the market demand. Okay. So the market demand, let's try to see when the price is $1. Okay. Kaylin will demand 8, while Ali will demand 5. So a combination between 8 and 5 will have a 13 ice cream. Okay. So this is how we come up with the market demand. Okay. All right. From here, do you have any questions? Before I move to the shift of demand, do you have any question from this model? Is everything clear to you? All right. Okay, guys, you need to know that we have a lot of things which move or we shift the demand curve. Yeah. So let's us learn about what are the things which shift the demand curve. It could be shifting to the right, or it could be shifting to the left. Yeah. So this demand curve actually can shift to the right or to the left. It can increase or it can decrease. And it depends on the aspect that we have in the market. Yeah. But you need to understand the movement. Yeah. So we have two kind of movement for the curve. If the curve is shifting, meanings that it move either to the right or to the left. But we have also a movement which are along the curve. Okay. So we have two types of movement. We have shift. This is a shift. Yeah. We have a movement. Move along the curve. Yeah. And there are different aspects which make the demand curve shift or the demand curve move along the curve. Yeah. So for example, yeah, when we have change in quantity demanded. So for example, Ali, before he demanded a $2 of price, he demanded 3, but now he demanded 4, or now he demanded 2. So the change in quantity demanded will result in the movement along the curve. Okay. Again. Please, guys, please be focused. Okay. We have two kind of movement. The first one is shift. Shift is that we have a demand curve and then it can go right or it can go left. And then we have the second movement is move along the curve. When I speak move along the curve, the only reason is the change in quantity demanded. For example, you see here in the previous slide, Ali for $2 of price, he demanded 3 ice cream. Let's say that Ali has changed his willingness and ability. Now for $2, he can buy, let's say, 4. Yeah. Let's say that for $2, now Ali can buy 4. Now he demand 4. Yeah. So when we have this kind of change, yeah, this will result in the movement along the curve. Okay, let's try to look at this. So, for example, yeah, we have an illustration here. Yeah, before we are at $1, and when the price is $1, the quantity demanded is 8. But now the government imposed a tax. So when the government imposes a tax, the price will become higher. Before it was $1, now it become $2. And when this happen, when we have an increase in price, yeah, because of the tax, what will happen to the quantity demanded? The quantity demanded will be decreased from 8 to 4. Yeah, you see that we have a movement along the curve. Before we are at the point of A, and now we are at point B. So due to an increase in tax, due to an increase in price because of the tax, so before it was $1, now it become $2. We have a movement along the curve. Before we are in point A, now we are in point. Before the quantity demanded is 8, now we only have 4 quantity demanded. Okay. Now, let's try to understand what shifts the demand curve. So actually, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 aspects which shift the demand of the curve. It can shift to the right. It can shift to the left. Okay. When I say the demand shift to the right, meanings what? The demand increase. Okay. When I say the demand shift to the left, means that what? Means that it reduces. Okay. For example, these are the 5 aspects which shift the demand curve. So first one, we have the consumer income. So when we have an increase in income, yeah, let's say that when we have an increase in income, what do you think will happen to our demand? So consumer price increase, the quantity demand will what? Will also? Yes, Theo. Can you answer?
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Can you just repeat the question this one time because my connection is not very good.
Okay. So let's say that. So these are the 5 aspects which shift the demand curve. All right. So we have consumer price, price of related goods, taste, expectation, and number of buyers. What do you think will happen if we have an increase in income? What do you think will happen to our demand? Do we demand more or do we demand less?
About what product? Because if it's like cheap product, the demand is going to be like stable because, for example, for a cheap product, for a person who don't have a lot of income can buy it. But for example, for a car, if the consumer income is going to grow, the demand is going to grow. So the producer
Yes.
is going to say like, okay, if the demand is going to grow, we're going to augment the number of products produced.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. At this point, we only consider normal goods. Yeah. We will later on differentiate between the goods, but at this point, let's assume that we have a normal goods. So when we have an increase in income, usually we demand more, right? We demand more. This is because of the normal goods. Let's say ice cream. So this is, imagine that we have an ice cream, okay? So what will happen if we have an increase in income? Let's say that before I can only buy one ice cream because of the increase in income. Now I can buy more ice cream, meaning that the quantity demand will increase. So because we have a change in income, so the curve will shift. Well, it will shift. It will shift in right or left. The answer is it will shift to the right because we see that the quantity demanded is increasing. Okay, let's try to look at, for example, price of related goods. Okay, so what makes up ice cream? Let's say that we need milk, we need flour, we need sugar, right? So these are the price, these are the related goods to the ice cream. Let's say that the price of milk has increased. What will happen to the price of ice cream? It will also increase, right? Let's say what the price of sugar increase. What will happen to the ice cream? The price of ice cream will also increase. So when we have prices of related goods increase, yeah, what will happen to the quantity demanded? Yeah, the quantity demanded will decrease because we has an increase of price of related goods, which make the ice cream price increase. And when the ice cream price increase, what will happen? The demand will be decreased. Yeah, because higher price will lead to lower demand. Okay. Now, let's try to look at taste. All right, taste. Let's say that people tastes are changing. Before, they love ice cream because they are in summer. But in winter, when the weather is very cold, do you think that people will love to buy ice cream in winter? What do you think? There will be a change in taste, right? Right? So when we have a change in taste, it will also impact the quantity demanded. Let's try to discuss about the expectations. This is the future expectation price. Let's say that in the future, the price of ice cream will be increased. What do you think that will happen to the quantity demand today? Quantity demand today will increase because they know that in the future, the ice cream price will increase. So they will buy today while the price is still cheap, right? So this will also shift the demand curve. It will shift the demand curve to the right so that you'll see that the quantity demanded today will increase. Yeah. Let's try to imagine about the number of buyers. What do you think, for example, if we have an increase in the number of buyers? Let's say that we have a population growth. Yeah. When the number of buyers increase, the quantity will also increase, right? So this will shift the demand curve to the right. All right. So these are, you know, the aspect which shift the demand curve. So now let's try to illustrate it, you know. Yeah. So this is the shift, guys. So if there is a change in certain aspect which make the demand shift increase, then it will shift to the right. So when it shifts to the right, when it moves to the right, it means that we have an increase in demand. But if we see that it will reduce the quantity demand or it will reduce the demand, it will shift to the left. Yeah. So this is an illustration. So let's try to look at this illustration. First one, the income. Yeah, as income increases, the demand for a normal good will increase, but the demand for the inferior good will decrease. Now we have two kind of goods. We have the normal goods and we have the inferior goods. Yeah. So what does it mean, the normal goods and the inferior good? Can you give me an example of normal good and inferior good? Please take notes, yeah. So normal good, they always increase when we have an increase in income. So when we have increases in income, the normal good will also increase. Yeah. But when we have an inferior good, inferiors mean that the goods that are less in quality. Yeah. When we have an inferior good, if we have an increase in income, it will reduce the demand for inferior good. Because when we have an inferior good, people, when they have more income, they will buy better quality goods. Okay. Okay, I will give you an example. Now, suppose that you are a student in business and management department and you always in canteen, right? Why? Because the foods in canteen, they are cheap and budget friendly. Yeah. So what happened suddenly if you have a lot of money? Yeah. And you become rich. And let's say that you inheritance a lot of wealth from the family. Before you used to go to canteen, now you will go to very good restaurant, maybe outside the ITS. Because what? Because now you are having more income. You want to buy a better food. So you'll go to big restaurant, a very expensive restaurant. Yeah, and you will not go anymore to canteen because canteen maybe somebody think that they are inferior. They are selling inferior food, for example. So when we have a lot of money, we will go to the restaurant, maybe outside the ITS. Yeah. So if we try to make a model on this, so this is the the normal goods. When we have an increase in income, it will shift the demand. Yeah, it will shift the demand to the right. This is true for the normal goods. But when we have an inferior good, an increase in income will reduce its demand, so it will shift to the left. Okay, so you see the shift to the left. This is because of the inferiority of the good. Okay, next we have price related goods. When a fall in the price of one good reduces the demand for another good, the two goods are called substitutes. Can you give me a good example? Let's say tea and coffee. Okay, so tea and coffee might be an example of a good example of substitutes. So what will happen? When a fall in the price of one good reduces the demand for another goods. So let's say that we have a decrease of price in tea. This is price decrease. Yeah. What will happen to the people? People will buy tea. So the demand of tea will increase, while the demand for coffee will decrease. Yeah. This is because tea and coffee is a substitute. All right. But what happened when we have a complement goods? A fall in the price of one good increases, yeah, the demand for another goods. You know, a complement goods, let's say that we have sugar, yeah, and we have sugar, and we have, for example, tea. And we say that this, oh, no, not tea, because people they don't drink tea with sugar. Oh, okay, yeah, tea. Yeah. Let's say that sugar and tea is a complementary goods. So what happened when a fall in the price of one good? So we have a fall in the price of sugar, meaning that the quantity demand for sugar will increase. Yeah. And because we have many sugar, meaning that we will buy also tea. So the demand of tea will also increase. Yeah. So this is a kind of, you know, a relationship between a substitute and the complements good. So they will affect one another. Yeah. So this is the rule when we have a fall in the price of one good. Let's say this is for substitute. Yeah, this is for substitute. So a fall in the price of one good. Yeah. So let's say that the price of tea decrease, it will reduces the demand for another goods. Yeah. Because the price of tea is increased, because the price of tea is decreased here, we will see that people demand more on tea. And when people demand more on tea, because tea and coffee is substitute, you see that the demand for coffee will reduce. Okay? But when we have a complement good, for example, sugar and tea, or sugar and coffee, yeah? When we have, for example, a price of one good, a fall in the price of one good, so we have a fall in the price of sugar, yeah, increases the demand for another good. So because of the reduced price of sugar, and which will increase the demand of sugar, people will also buy tea more because they can buy sugar more. Now the quantity demanded for tea will also increase. Yeah. So for substitutes, increase in one product will reduce. This is the substitutes. This demand one and demand product two. But for the complement, an increase in demand for a complement will also increase the demand for its complementer. Yeah. So demand increase, demand increase, demand increase, demand decrease. This is for substitute. This is for complement. Okay. All right. Do you have any questions on this? Is anyone confused for the concept of substitutes and complements? Yeah. Do you have any questions? If not, then so this is the summary which influence buyer, so which influence demand. Yeah. So when we have a price increase, this will represent a movement along the demand curve. While if we have income, price of related goods, stays, expectation, number of buyer, we are going to see the shift in the demand curve. Okay, so the 5 aspects will lead to the shift of the demand curve. While if we have a change in the price variable, it will represent the movement along the demand curve. Okay, so this is the summary for the demand. Is there any questions before we move to the supply? Okay, yeah. All right, now let me discuss about the supply. So when we speak about the supply, we are talking in the perspective of seller. Yeah. And when we talk about the seller, they concern about the quantity supplied. Yeah. So the quantity supplied is the amount of good that the seller are, again, two keywords here, willing and able to sell. Okay. So the quantity supplied, yeah, we speak about seller that are willing and able to sell. Okay. So next we have the law of supply. It says that, it states that ceteris paribus, the quantity supplied of a good rises when the price of the good rise. So when we have a price increase, what will happen to the supply? Supply will also increase. For example, if we see that Apple is increasing in price, you know, every farmer, they will try to farm apple. They will try to produce apple because they see that they have an increase in the price of apple. So it has a positive relationship. It has the same directions. When they see that the price of that good is increased, yeah, the supply will also increase. This is for the perspective of seller. But it's different when we speak about the buyers. The buyer, when we see an increase in price, they will lower the demand. They are not willing to buy an expensive product. But the higher the price for the seller, they are more happy. Yeah, they will be more happy because they can sell at a very high price so that they will increase the production. They will increase the quantity they supply. Yeah, so this is the two different perspectives. So when we see the supply, the curve looks like this. It is positively sloped. You see that it is upward sloping. It goes up. Yeah, and the slope is positive. Yeah, the slope is positive. Okay. So this is the supply schedule. You know, the supply schedule is the same as the demand schedule, shows you the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. Yeah. And let's try to look at this illustration where we have the schedule of the ice cream and then we have the price here. See, if the ice cream is free, this is free, $0. What will happen to the buyer? Do you think that the buyer will give you a free ice cream? What do you think? The ice cream will be zero. Nobody of the seller will sell you at free. Well, unless there is some occasion or special bonus or things like that. But at reality, in normal days, you know, nobody is selling an ice cream for free. Yeah. Let's try to increase the price. What will happen if we increase the price by $0.50? You see, even if we have a $0.50, there's still nobody sell ice cream. The quantity supplied is still zero. Why? Because they have costs of producing ice cream. So when the price is 0.5, maybe it's not enough to cover the production cost of making ice cream, right? So even if we increase the price at 0.5 US dollar, we can still see that the supply of the ice cream is still zero. Now, let's try to increase again at $1. When we have $1, the quantity supplied is 1 ice cream. Yeah. So you see that the increase of price will increase the quantity supplied. Let's try to increase another 50 cents, another 50 or $0.5. Look what will happen to the quantity supplied. It will increase to 2. And the higher the price, when the ice cream is selling for $3, many of the seller will be willing to sell their ice cream. And for $3, they're willing to sell for 5 ice cream. Okay. So this is the schedule which shows you the relationship between the price and the quantity supply. Now we have the supply curve. So if we draw the supply schedule, this is the supply that looks, look at this. So we have $2 and we have an increase of 2.5. Look, the number of the supply that the seller are willing and able to supply is increased from 3 to 4. So the increase in price will increase the quantity supplied. Okay, so that's why it has a positive slope. You know, the slope will become positive. Yeah, it different than in demand where we have a negative slope, and it is upward sloping. Okay. Now we also have the same idea of the market supply. So the market supply, it refers to the sum or the combination of all individual suppliers, sellers. Yeah, for all sellers for a particular good or services. Okay, and the graphically individual supply curves are summed horizontally to obtain the market supply curve. So let's try to look at the, oh, they don't have the graph of the market supply, but I think that the same idea applied when we speak about the market supply. So you come up with the market supply. Okay. So these are the aspects which shift the supply curve. Yeah, we have the input price, we have the technology, we have the expectation, we have the number of sellers. Yeah. So for example, we have an increase in input price. So let's say that what are the components of making an ice cream? We say that milk, sugar, yeah, and flour, for example. So when we have an increase in milk, the price of ice cream will also increase. If we have an increase in sugar, we will have a price of ice cream will also increase. Yeah. So the input prices increase will, of course, reduce the supply. Hey, I'm sorry. When input price increase, it will make the production cost increase, and it will make the price increase. And when we have an increase in price, it will also increase in the supply. Yeah, because the higher the price, the higher the supply. Technology, the better the technology, the more we can supply. Yeah. Expectation, for example, later on we have an increase in price. So what will happen to today's supply? It will reduce because everybody will supply later on. Yeah. And if we have a number of seller, the higher the number of seller, yeah, the higher the number of seller, the supply will also be higher. Okay. So yeah, now we have the same, yeah, the movement along the curve. So the movement along the curve is due to the price change. So if we have the change in price, there will be a movement along the supply curve. But if we have a change in these four aspects, input price, technology, expectation, and number of seller, it will shift the supply curve. Okay, so this is let's say that this is an illustration. See that we have a rise in the price of ice cream cone result in a movement along the supply curve. So suddenly, for example, before we have a market price of $1, and now we have an increase in the market price become $3. You'll see that the supply quantity will move from A to B. So the quantity supplied will increase from 1 to 5, because when the price of ice cream is higher, you'll find that many sellers are willing to give or to sell ice cream. Okay. This is the change in supply, a shift. Yeah. So a shift will happen because of the movement other than price. So when we have a price, the movement will be along the curve. But if we have other aspect, so the movement will be shifting right or left. Okay. Now this is the supply curve. So it shifts to the right and it also shifts to the left. When it shifts to the right here, yeah, you know, this S2, meaning that we have an increase in supply. But when we shift to the left, meaning that we have a decrease in supply. All right. So this is the summary. So when the price variable will make a movement along the curve, but this 4 will shift to the supply curve. Okay. Now, do you have any question for the supply before we move to the equilibrium price? Okay. Do you have any questions before we move to the equilibrium price? All right. Now let's talk about the equilibrium price. So it is the situation in which price reach the level where the quantity supplied equal the quantity demand. So this is the interaction between supply and demand. We call this equilibrium. This is the price at which the buyers and the sellers agree to sell and to buy. This is the price at which all of them are better off, the buyer and the seller, and they are willing and they are able to trade at this price. This is called equilibrium price. So the equilibrium price is the price that balance quantity supplied and quantity demand on a graph. It is the price at which supply and demand interact together. So this is the intersection point. Equilibrium quantity is the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded at the equilibrium price. Yeah. So it also intersect, yeah, with the supply. So let's try to, to make an illustration. So let's say that this is the demand schedule on the market for ice cream, and this is the supply schedule on the market for ice cream. Okay, and you see that they meet at here. See? So this is the equilibrium price. This is the price where quantity demanded equal quantity price, quantity supplied at the same price, at the same market price. Okay. So if we draw, yeah, if we draw the two lines, yeah, we will see this kind of model. So in this model, we see that at equilibrium price of $2, both buyers, the demanders, and seller, the suppliers, they offer the same quantity. So this is what we call the market equilibrium price. Okay, market equilibrium price. Now, we have two concepts of, when we speak about equilibrium, we have a concept of surplus and we have a concept of deficit. So when surplus happen and when a deficit happen, okay, surplus happen, yeah, when price is bigger than the equilibrium price. And then the quantity supplied is larger than the quantity demanded. So we have more product supply rather than more product demand. So we see here there is an excess of supply or a surplus. So in the situation when we have a surplus, the supplier will lower the price to increase the sales, thereby moving toward equilibrium. Usually surplus happen when we have more supply than demanded. So let's try to take an illustration. Okay, but this is, yeah, in equilibrium, you see that the equilibrium price is at $2. But currently, the ice cream is selling for 2.5. When the ice cream is selling for 2.5, we will have the quantity supplied. Yeah, we will have the quantity supplied 10 is less than the quantity demand. Maybe here is 4. Okay. Yeah, 4. See? See, when this happen, we have more buyers, more sellers than the buyers. We have more quantity of product to be sold than more buyers. So when the price is higher than the equilibrium price, we're gonna have a surplus. And if we have a surplus, meaning that the market is not efficient. So this is inefficient. Yeah. So this is inefficient because of the surplus. So this is the surplus area. Yeah. This is the surplus area. This is inefficient. Imagine that the market equilibrium price is 2, but currently they are selling for 2.5. So we have a surplus in the market because the current price is higher than the equilibrium. Okay. All right. So we have inefficiency here. When in the equilibrium, we have an efficient price. Yeah, because the quantity demand and the quantity supply will meet at the same quantity at the same price. But when the market is selling higher than the equilibrium price, we're going to have a surplus. Okay. Next, we have a shortage or a deficit. So a deficit happens when we have more quantity demanded rather than quantity supplied. This happens when the price is lower than equilibrium price. So when the goods is cheaper, we're going to have more buyer and less seller. So the shortage will happen here. Yeah. What happened when shortage? The supplier will raise the price due to many buyers chasing too few goods, thereby moving toward equilibrium. So let me give you an example. So here, for example, yeah. So the equilibrium price is at $2, but currently they are selling for 1.5. When this happens, you see that the supplier is supplying at 4, where the demand is 10. So we have a shortage in the market. Yeah. So this shortage, yeah, will lead to inefficiency. Yeah. So we have a shortage or we have an inefficiency. Okay. So this is the shortage, and in this case, the market is also inefficient. So the market is only efficient in the equilibrium price. So when we have a shortage, the selling less than the equilibrium price, leading to there is no buyer is willing to sell, and we have more buyers. No seller, more buyer. And when this happens, we have a shortage. And when we have a shortage, meaning that the market is inefficient. Okay, because at the equilibrium, supposed to sell at 2, but now they sell at 150. Yeah. So in equilibrium, when we speak about the low supply and demand, there's a claim that the price of any good adjusts to bring the quantity supplied and the quantity demand for that good into balance. So what happened when we have a shortage? When we have a shortage, the supplier will try to increase the price so that it can supply more. Yeah. But when we have a surplus, what happened? The supplier, they will try to reduce the price so that we have more buyer. Yeah. So this is an important condition that you need to learn. So we have a surplus and we have a shortage or a deficit. And this makes the price inefficient. And when we have an inefficiency in the market, there will be a force which try to rebalance the quantity and the price of goods and services to become in equilibrium state again. Okay. All right. So do you have any questions before we move to the next slide? So we will speak about the equilibrium. So equilibrium, we try to find the intersection between the supply and demand, and we find this equilibrium at which the quantity demand and the quantity supply is equal on the same price. Yeah. And it is very hard to get into equilibrium state because of the shortage and the surplus that we have. So when we have a surplus and when we have a shortage, we're gonna have an inefficiency in the market. So the forces of the market will try to rebalance the price and the quantities so it can be at equilibrium again. All right. So is there any questions before we move further?
Nah, yang kita beli yang deliver itu. Karena barangnya harus sampai ini tak minggu. Gitu. Jadi kalau kita ngomong.
Okay, now we are going to learn about some analysis in the interaction of supply and demand curve, and we will have to understand the shift and the movement and we're gonna try to study some illustrations, and hopefully that through this illustration we are going to see the market analysis. Okay, so let us continue. So now we are going to study the change in equilibrium state. So the movement from equilibrium state to inequilibrium state. Yeah. So there are three steps that we need to consider. First, we decide the event. It is shift the supply or shift to the demand, or maybe it shift both curves. Yeah. And after we decide which curve shifts, whether it is the supply curve or the demand curve, next we have to see in which direction the curve shift. Yeah, and please, I want you to learn about the. Wait. Hello, can you hear my voice, guys? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear your voice.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes.
wait, I cannot hear you. Hello, can you hear my voice? Test.
Yes, sir, we can hear your
Yes, sir.
voice.
Okay, you can hear my voice. Okay, that's good. So, so now we are going to learn about the analysis, yeah, of equilibrium. So, the change in equilibrium states. So first, we need to decide which curve shift, whether it is the supply curve, the demand curve, or perhaps both curves. And then we need to decide in which direction. And then we use the supply and demand diagram to see how the shift will change the equilibrium price and quantity. Okay. So for example, yeah, so this is the initial equilibrium. So the initial equilibrium happens when the market price at 2 and the quantity is at 7. So this is the quantity at which quantity demanded and quantity supplied meet. So this is the condition of the initial equilibrium. And suddenly, there is a change. So let's say that the hot weather increases the demand for ice cream because we have a hot weather. Everyone is wishing to buy an ice cream. So this, what will happen? This change the taste of people. And when they change the taste of the people, we will shift the demand curve. Yeah. From D1 to D2. It's shifted to the right. And then we are going to have a new equilibrium at 2.5. And when we have an increase in price, of course, that the quantity will also increase because of the shift of the demand. Yeah. So because of the weather, the hot weather, the demand for ice cream will increase, resulting in a higher prices and a higher quantity sold. Okay. And you need to be careful, yeah, because sometimes we have a movement which is a long curve, not the shift. Yeah. So this is the shifts in curve versus movement along the curve. A shift in the supply curve is called change in supply. Yeah. So when we have a shift, meaning that we have a change in supply or in demand. A movement along a fixed supply curve is called a change in quantity supply. A shift in demand called a change in demand, while a movement along a fixed demand curve is called change in quantity demand. So when we have a shift, meaning that we have a change in demand and supply, but the movement along the curve, we call this a change in quantity, whether it is demanded or supplied. Yeah, so you should be careful about the movement along the curve and the shift. So let's try to look at another example. Okay, so this is how a decrease in supply affects the equilibrium. For example, we used to have an initial equilibrium at point A. Yeah, point A. This is price 2 and the quantity is 7. And then an increase in the price of sugar reduces the supply of ice cream. Why? Because when we have sugar increase, the production cost will increase. When we have an increase in production cost, the supply will reduce. Yeah. So when we have an increase in sugar, production cost will increase, the supply will be reduced. So we're going to have a new equilibrium. Yeah. At this case, see here, the increase of sugar will shift the supply curve to the left, which lead to the higher price and a lower quantity to be sold. Why? Because we have less supply. Yeah, less supply and higher price. Yeah. You remember milk, flour, sugar are the component of ice cream. Yeah. So we have an increase in sugar will make the production cost increase, which will make the supply curve reduce. Okay. All right. So this is the table which sums up the interaction between the supply and the demand. Okay. So for example, we have no change in supply, no change in demand, meaning shift. Okay. So the price will stay the same, the quantity will stay the same. But what happened if we have no change in demand, but we have an increase in supply? We have the price down and quantity up. So we have, this is the demand, this is the supply, yeah. And then we have an increase in supply. So the supply increase, yeah. So when we have a supply increase, what will happen? What will happen? Yeah. This is the initial and this is the afterwards. Yeah. So the price will go down from price 1 to price 2 and the quantity will up from quantity 1 to quantity 2. Yeah. This is when we have no change in demand, we have an increase in supply. Okay. Now, let's try to look. We have no change in demand, but we have a decrease in supply. So this is supply, this is demand. This is demand, this is supply, and then we have a decrease in supply. So the supply decrease means shifting to the left, like this. What will happen? Yeah, before we use P1 here and P2, and before we are in Q1 and Q2. So what will happen is that we have an increase in price and we have a reduce in quantity. Yeah. Okay. Do you understand, guys? So you need to see like the interaction between the supply and demand. Okay. Now, what happens if we have both increase? If we have both increase, yeah. For example, yeah. For example, we have here an increase in demand, no change in an increase in demand and an increase in supply. So here, this is demand, this is supply. Then we have two shifts. So the demand shift to the right and the supply also shift to the right. Yeah. Maybe I will throw in another color. Yeah. Nah, oops. Nah, so we have an increase in supply and we have also an increase in demand. What happened? What happened? You see that we have an increase in quantity. This is quantity one. This is quantity one. This is quantity two. But we have the same price level. When we have two curves and then they stay the same, we call this ambiguous. Ambiguous mean what? We cannot know what will happen to the price. It can goes up, it can goes down, depending on how much shift bigger. So if we have a shift bigger for a demand, you see that we have a reduce in price. But if we have a bigger shift in supply, we have a bigger price. Yeah. For example, I will draw another graph, but this one, let's say that the movement, the shift of demand is greater than the shift of supply. So this is the first model. Yeah. And then we have a shift in demand greater. So this is a shift in demand greater than a shift in supply. Let me go and see the demand. Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay. See here, both of them increase the supply and increase in demand. But the demand shift is larger than the supply shift. Look what happened. Look what happened. Yeah. Look what happened. Yeah. Q1, Q1 and Q2 is larger. Quantity up. But in this case, we have an increase in price. We have from price 1 to price 2. Why? Because the demand shift larger than the supply shift. But if they both have the same power of shift, the price will not change and it become ambiguous. Okay, do you understand this point or not? Yeah. So in this case, when we have two curves shifting, we need to see which one has a bigger shift, whether the demand curve or the supply curve, because it can be ambiguous if the shift has the same strength. But if they have a different strength, then we will see that they will have a different movement and they will have the different results in price and in quantity. So you should draw a graph and try to have some practice on analyzing the movement of supply curve and the demand curve. Okay. All right. Now, do you have any questions? Is it difficult? Yeah. See the difference of the results that we have. It depends on the strength of the interaction of the movement of the curve. Which one is moving bigger than others? But if they have the same strength, it will become ambiguous for either price or the quantity. So we should be careful about the strength of the shift. All right. So this will summarize the interaction and the supply and the shift of the demand and the supply curve, and you can practice on this. So this is the summary. Yeah. So economists use the model of supply and demand to analyze competitive market. So in a competitive market, there are many buyers and sellers, each of whom has little or no influence on the market price. Yeah. So because we have many buyers, we have many sellers. So one individuals, whether they are buyer or they are seller, they cannot have an influence on the market price. Yeah. So the demand curve shows how the quantity of good depends upon the price. You see, this is the demand curve. Yeah. The demand curve, it is negatively sloped, downward sloping. Yeah. The law of demand say that if the price of good fall, yeah, the price fall, the quantity demanded will increase. Yeah, this is the law of demand. And in addition, other determinants of how much consumer wants to buy include income, price of complement, substitute days, expectation. So you have to understand that we have two kind of movements. The first movement is the shift, and the second movement is the move along the curve. Yeah, you see that the move along the curve is caused by the change in price. Yeah, while the shift is due to the income, price of complements, substitutes, this expectation, and the number of buyers. Yeah, so this is the movement. And then we have and then yeah, and then we can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, we have the supply curve, shows you the quantity of goods supplied, which depend upon the price. So this is the supply curve. Yeah. We have the law of supply, which say that if the price of good increases, this will lead to the increase of the supply. Yeah. And then we, in addition to the price, we have other determinants such as, yeah, input price, yeah, such as input price, technology, expectation, number of seller, yeah. And if one of these factors change, the supply curve shifts. Then we have the market equilibrium. So this is the place interaction between supply and the demand. The equilibrium, yeah, price is the quantity demanded equal the quantity supplied. Yeah. And the behavior of buyer and seller naturally drive market towards that equilibrium. So to analyze how any event influences the market, we use a supply and demand diagram to examine how the event affect the equilibrium, price, and quantity. So price are the signal that guide economic decision and thereby allocate resources. Yeah. So these are the things that we learn for today. Yeah. So today you'll have learned about the supply, the demand, the things which affect each of the curves. Yeah, we have the two movement along the curve and the shift, and also we have the market equilibrium, and you see the analysis of the change in equilibrium state. And later on, yeah, I will give some assignment, and I will make sure that you understand through case studies, and please do the assignments. And I want you to read the book so that you can have a better understanding. Do we have any question, guys? Is it difficult? Okay, so next week we are going to meet and we're going to discuss about the government policies on supply and demand, and I hope that we can cover the material next week. And thank you. So this is the attendance cost. I think that you can scan the QR, and please do the assignments. I will coordinate with the class assistant to provide you with assignment and to guide you with assignment. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a nice day.
Thank you,
Nah,
sir.
ini ada apa? Mbak Kaila.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.